everybody, welcome back to another Mepacon live stream. My name is Katie and I'm joined by Eric, one of our other directors, and Trisha, another director. And then we've also brought in Jasmine, who's been a longtime GM for us, and Jason Schimmel, who's not on video, but you'll hear his voice. And Jason is our Pathfinder track lead. So we wanted to take some time today to just talk a little bit about Pathfinder, which is one of our favorite games. It's my personal favorite game. I play more Pathfinder than literally any other game. And so we just wanted to share a little bit of that with all of you. So to start us off, let's just give everybody a little bit of background. How did you get into Pathfinder? What's your background with it? How much have you played it? That kind of thing. So I'll start with Jasmine. Go ahead and tell us.
I think I officially started playing Pathfinder about 2 years after it first got released. But my main 3.5 kind of did a mishmash of both 3.5 and Pathfinder. And then I started the official first Pathfinder game in our Wednesday rotation. And we just completed our first full-on Pathfinder game. Well, actually, it's my second full-on Pathfinder game. Last year is the Egyptian campaign. And then this year we're doing Pirates of Freeport, which is I'm using the Pathfinder conversion, which is like Cthulhu plus Pirates. So
was that Mummy's Mask that you did?
Yeah, the Gary Gygax's Necropolis. I updated it for Pathfinder, so we did that campaign. Nice. And my players hate Gary Gygax because of that module.
Trish, how about you?
Yeah, I was a D&D player for many years and years. And then we were playing 3.5. And soon after that, I started playing different Pathfinder campaigns because it's very, very similar, sort of. Yeah. Except Pathfinder is super detailed, like mega detail, which is great. I love the fact that now I can have something like Hero Lab to keep track of all that stuff, so I don't have to remember it all in my head. But yeah, and right now we have a Pirates campaign that strangely we're playing more online than face to face. A little bizarre,
yeah,
but
Pirates.
Yeah, that's Eric's running that. Trisha and I are two of the original members. I think we're the only two original members left in that game.
Correct. You are the only two original members. Well, if we include myself.
Jason, you want to give us a little bit of your background?
Oh boy, howdy. So I think it actually all comes back to teaching. In my second year of teaching, I was at this training and I was flipping through a issue of Dungeon Magazine, which was at the time being published by Paizo. And one of the other new hires was near me and was like, hey, you play D&D? Yeah, I'm starting a campaign. Yeah, Paizo's publishing a new RPG. It's going to be an update. It's Pathfinder. And so I've been playing, I guess, technically since the beta test of Pathfinder First Edition. And have probably logged in way too many hours at this point.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know if it is possible to have too many hours. Eric?
So we have to travel back to, I guess, 1978. Maybe it was somewhere around that time, or maybe a little bit later, when the Red Box came out and of D&D's Basic Edition, and I have like a couple different versions of that sitting around. So I started there, played First Edition, AD&D, whatever you want to call that. I never dabbled with Second Edition because I don't know what happened. Life happened, and all of a sudden role-playing games fell out of my life. And then Third Edition came out, and I was like, well, that sounds interesting. And 2 years later, it was 3.5, or 4 years, whatever, how quickly it was. But 3.5 is about when I got back in. And Fourth Edition, of course, brought us to Pathfinder because fourth edition just wasn't the kind of game that people wanted to play at that time. And yes, Pathfinder Society game around 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It's the first one I played. Then didn't play for years because I never get to play at our own convention. And now I'm, GMing 2?
3.
3?
No, 2.
Yeah, GMing 2, playing in 1. Trying to convince people to play in a 4th. Because I really want to do Extinction Curse so bad.
So similar to most of you, I started with D&D, and I played 3.5 in high school, which was when it was out. That makes me a little bit younger than most of you. But one of the things that Eric and I bonded over when we started dating now 16 years ago was that we did love gaming, and I started coming to Mepacon, and then he said, I want to run a Pathfinder campaign, and so he started the Pirates one that we're doing, which is the Paizo's adventure path for Skull and Shackles. And over time, I got more and more invested and started listening to an actual play Pathfinder podcast called the Glass Cannon. It's the Glass Cannon podcast. Now it's the Glass Cannon Network, which is phenomenal. If you like Pathfinder, you should definitely check it out. And through listening to them, I started to feel like, you know what, maybe I could run something. And so I ran a one-shot, and we had a great time. And so now I'm actually a year and a half into running my own Pathfinder campaign, which again, we're using Paizo's Adventure Pass. I'm running Mummy's Mask. And then Eric and I started writing for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you guys didn't see, we ran a demo of that with Jasmine and Trish and a couple of other people back in May. And we posted all of that on... or actually, Jasmine, did we run yours?
I wasn't in that one.
Jasmine was in our playtest.
But wasn't on stream.
Yeah, Jasmine played with us another time. And so we're working on a sequel to that, so hopefully we'll be able to get that out soon. But it's been a lot of fun playing it, running it, and writing it now. And so we definitely have invested in Pathfinder to a very large degree. So let's see. Have you guys, well, I know some of you have tried 2nd edition for sure. What do you all think of 2nd edition Pathfinder?
I like it so far, but just like every other game, you know, more than 1 or 2 sessions is really necessary to know how much you like it.
I know I probably won't play it outside of Mepacon, only because my home game doesn't like 2nd edition Pathfinder.
Okay. I have to say, at first I wasn't sold on it. I was, I hate change, so I was like, I don't want to change. I like what I know, and I still don't feel like I know Pathfinder inside and out, which was one of the barriers I had to running it. But one of the things that I kind of embraced was this idea of it's a framework, and if I don't know what the particular number should be on the die to make the thing happen, I'll just make it up, because it's all about having fun and telling a story. And thankfully I have a really good group of people that I play with, and one of them being Eric, who knows most of the rules, and I can say like, oh hey Eric, remind me of that thing, and I know that he would never lie to me. So today is our 11th wedding anniversary, so I think I trust him just a little bit. So I was hesitant to switch to 2nd edition, but the more I've played it, the more I like it. I like the 3 action economy a lot, which again, I was hesitant about, but definitely running or playing in one of the demos we played at PAX Unplugged was definitely helpful in getting a better feel for it. Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about running those demos, because Jason ran them out at Gen Con last summer.
Yes, justice. The need for it is what brings you to the fun. Sorry, I've run it so many times that that I can start doing the opening description from memory still, even though I haven't touched it in a long time. Generally speaking, I would say that the people that I ran for, the demos were well received. There are a ton of things that I really enjoy about the new system, even though I haven't had a lot of time with it, just because of just my personal schedule. I've done a touch of GMing and a little slightly more bit of playing, which is weird for me, because that's not usually what happens. But I managed to get involved in some online games, so I've got a couple sessions under my belt now. I'm definitely going to file myself under. I like what I see so far, but I definitely, having only played mostly first level characters, it's hard to tell and see what shape things will take further as things progress. I'm certainly not going to go, well, you can't do this thing in the new rules that you could do in the old rules, because I could probably look at that given thing and go, oh yeah, you want me to tell you about 2012 when you couldn't do that thing in Pathfinder First Edition either, because that book hadn't come out yet? So I'm definitely not. It's a new system. It's going to take time to develop. But again, what I've experienced so far, I've enjoyed, and as far as I know, everyone I've run demos for has felt similarly. They were at least intrigued.
Good.
I've yet to meet someone who didn't like the 3-action system.
Yeah.
Like that, you get 3 actions on your turn, and they're like,
yeah.
Wow.
I really like that aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's great about being able to go to cons, is to try out a new system or new rules, or without feeling like you have to learn the whole thing in order to participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know at Gen Con, we couldn't get into a demo. And Eric and I tried a dozen times and just gave up. And we saw Jason there, and Jason laughed, and he said, I could run this for you at home.
and somehow we never managed to make that happen. I don't know what happened there.
No, but
keep saying we need to do stuff. Well, considering the two of you live directly across the street from my grandparents,
I know, literally. Which
I think we'd get together more often.
You would think, but we ended up getting to run one at PAX Unplugged, or play in one at PAX Unplugged. And actually, I'm going to ask you guys to tell me your favorite Pathfinder related story. So I'll tell mine while you think about that. But we have a very newly 9-year-old daughter. She just turned 9 about a week and a half ago. And we wanted her to get into Pathfinder. And so we've been playing with her a little bit at home, but she wasn't totally sold, especially on playing with strangers. And so we went out to PAX Unplugged, and we took her with us. And we met Liz Lydell, who is one of the writers and works for Paizo. And she was super nice and super cool with Violet, and talked to her. And we convinced Violet that if Liz would run the game, she would do the demo. And so we went and signed up at the time Liz told us, and we went to, we had to try so hard to convince Violet. It was not even funny. She was like, but there are going to be strangers there, and it's a whole hour long, and she just was not having it. And we played, and she ended up rolling my D20 that lights up when you get a natural 20. She rolled that on the final hit in the final battle of the demo and killed the beast, whatever. And she was so excited. It was insane. She just completely fell in love with it at that moment. And Liz was a great GM. And so we just had the best time. And I was so glad that was her first real Pathfinder experience outside the house, to have Liz Lydell run it for her, and to have that moment of excitement. I have some really cute pictures of her with her big smile and her character sheet. So that will definitely go down in the history books for me as a great Pathfinder moment. What do you guys have? What memories do you have of Pathfinder that bring you smiles?
Can I go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a little background. This is from my Egyptian campaign, and I eventually called it When the Paladin is Away, the Cats Will Play, because Trisha was my first Paladin, and then we kept on losing Paladins throughout the campaign.
Oh, no.
So Megan and Ashley were playing Catfolk Sisters, And there was a part in Gary Gygax's Necropolis where there's a whole like room of like dungeons, and of course there's hieroglyphics all over the place. They get to this one door where there's a sun on one side and a hieroglyphic of Osiris in the middle, and then the moon on the other side. One of my players, Steve, he puts his hand on Osiris's hieroglyphic. He dies immediately.
Oh no.
And then Megan's character, she was playing a Catfolk rogue. She puts her hand on the sun hieroglyphic. She transports to the plane of fire, and we ended on a cliffhanger there. She didn't not know what to do at that moment. So her sister, who wasn't there that night, had to go and rescue her from the plane of fire. But
Nice.
there were so many shenanigans from that one campaign. So
That's great.
I think that campaign is in some dictionary somewhere next to shenanigans as the definition of
shenanigans.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I'll go next. I still think that one of my favorites comes from Skull and Shackles. Early on, the party finds themselves inside a underground, partially underwater tunnel of caves filled with grindylows. But there's also a very large extraplanar fish. I'm trying to remember the name of the thing right now. And our one player, Vinny, was a he was a bard. He was not a bard. He was a druid. He was a druid. He was a water druid raised by elves.
Who was a dwarf, right?
Yeah, he was a dwarf. And our other player, Jeremy, was a full orc. I don't know why I let him do that, but they came up with this idea of being able to flank this fish if Jeremy's barbarian would throw the dwarfen druid to the other side.
That's right. Oh goodness.
And then I let him get away with it. And he throws, the barbarian throws the dwarf 10 feet away because he has a trident with a extending range. And he crits and does some outrageous amount of damage to this extraplanar fish and kills it. And I was like, this thing did no damage to anybody yet. And it's dead. And it's really begun the point where everyone seems to kill my monsters and have no real guilt about it. No one apologizes. No one sends me cards afterwards. It's just all my monsters die.
I don't think we will ever.
No. No, not at all. Trish, Jason,
Actually,
do
when
you guys have
Jasmine
a
was
story?
talking about the Egyptian campaign, it reminds I don't think it was the same. Might have been the same campaign, Jasmine, but Catherine was playing in Jasmine's game. So
Yeah, it was the same campaign.
first game outside the she's played at Mepacon, but let's say outside of like Mepacon family and extended family and very first session, the end of the thing, she's going into some room. I don't
I think this was the Dragonlance campaign that we did in Pathfinder.
Yeah. So she walks in. I don't know. Something was cursed. She rolled poorly, and it was like, yeah, so you're disintegrated. I think she was maybe 13. I think.
Something
And
like that.
he handled it like a champ. I thought, oh man, here we go. This is going to be like Waterworks, right? I went through all this crap, Mom. I had to make up this whole character. And now you're like, I'm dead. But she was like, oh, I guess that was a bad idea going in there.
I think afterwards, I think I said it was because it was her alignment. And she was like, oh, at least it wasn't for something stupid I did.
So
We
those
have a
kind of things are great.
We have a very similar story with Eric's daughter, Emily, who's now 20, but she was probably 12 or 13 at the time. And Vinny, who Eric just told the story about, was running a game, and Emily was playing, I think, a rogue. And so she was sneaking around, and she came across, it was like a building. We said, okay, we're going to go around the outside and meet around the other side. And she found a door. So she says, I'm going to open the door quietly. And Vinny says, I don't think you want to do that. And she's like, no, I'm going to do it quietly. And he's like, are you sure you want to do that? And they went back and forth and back and forth. And she just said, no, I want to open the door, stealthily. And he's like, okay. And so she opens it stealthily and walks into the main dungeon. Well, she was by herself. There was no hope.
Yeah, it was, I think my character was a ranger, and I was flanking on the other side. Other way. And the way he was describing these doors, like these iron barred doors, they're really big. like yeah, I'm gonna open them quietly, and we're all like, no. Whatever you do not open the doors. But yeah, she had to learn that
she learned way. We still talk about it. 7-ish years later.
It was fun. Jason, I'm sure. I mean, sad in a way, but fun.
Yes. Yeah. Jason, I'm sure you have 1,000,001 stories from Pathfinder. Do you have any off the top of your head?
So yeah, I got one I'm gonna go with. So I was down in Philly running a Pathfinder Society game for a retailer convention at the store Red Cap's Corner, and like the PCs are trying to find this secret information, like this secret book with information about the good elemental lord of air who's like imprisoned, because in Pathfinder all the rulers of the elemental planes are evil because they all ganged up and imprisoned the good ones. And at one point, after getting like some clues as to where to go to look for this information that they need, they're supposed to like sort of get jumped in an alley by some agents of this organization that are trying to keep this information secret. And they get jumped by like a pair of shocker lizards that are slightly more intelligent than normal because they're like attuned to the plane of air, so like they can also fly and stuff. And I'm noticing the stat block. I'm like, okay, so they speak Orin, they speak the elemental language of air. It doesn't say cannot speak, like a lot of creature entries say when they understand what you're saying, but they can't talk back. So I'm like, all right. And I'm looking for a voice for these shocker lizards. And somewhere out of nowhere, I pull out John Turturro as Pete from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And I just like, this lizard looks at him and I bug eye out at the players. And this lizard just looks and goes, do not seek the treasure. So the players speak Orin. So they're trying like to negotiate. Like, can we talk to your boss? Maybe we can work this out. Maybe we're really on the same side. Except the shocker lizards aren't that much brighter. And at which point the players like start feeling guilty that they're going to beat up these shocker lizards because they're in the way. And I think we even named them. They were Kevin and Joel. Why Kevin and Joel? You'll have to ask James Ballard, who was one of my players that day and is involved in No Direction Beyond. But when stuff like that happens at PFS games, I run those scenarios multiple times. So the reason I should choose that story is like every single time something that amuses me like that happens, like that just becomes canon. Like, I'm like, all right, it's time for Kevin and Joel. Kevin and Joel are going to jump you now. Like, and that's just boom. That's what it is every single time I run it after that.
That's great. Funny. Eric, you should tell the story about the Speak with Animals. Because that was you, wasn't it?
Yes. Different campaign that Vinny was running didn't have the kids involved in that one, because I think we had one that we were doing, and he basically had his own world set up kind of thing. It was set in Galarian, the Pathfinder world setting, but he had done something where he was like gonna kind of do my own thing and then occasionally throw in modules to fill out some of his story pieces, where like dungeons and stuff like that. I found out I guess probably a year later, he was using is it Dark Mirror, and you have to talk to the Houndmaster of the Baron in this thing, and we were not necessarily exactly believing that we were getting, you know, the absolute truth from the Houndmaster. I was playing a gnome, and gnomes have the ability to talk to animals once per day, so I decided to pull the party aside and say, hey, you know, I can speak to animals, and I think we can maybe talk to the dogs here and see if maybe they can give us a hint, you know, maybe talk to us and see if this guy's a good guy or not. And yep, 4-star GM to have to play a dog.
He was not expecting that.
So,
I don't know if any of you guys do like non-standard introductions for your campaigns, but for my pirate one, I did a where they were basically lost in the ocean because they were tethered to their boat because the alcohol fumes built up in their pirate ship. But their overnight during the watch, their little raft got untied from their boat, and they got picked up by these other pirates. But they quickly found out that the pirates that they got picked up were actually farmers who decided that they wanted to do piracy instead, and asked the PCs, "Hey, can you tell us how to do pirate stuff?" And like they quickly figured it out, and then they realized, hey, these stupid pirates have a beholder in their cargo. Let's just like let loose the beholder. They talk to the beholder, and they're like, the beholder's like, I am a pacifist. I don't kill people. So they were like, okay, well, can you pretend that you're shooting them or whatever? And so they released the beholder, and he's doing like the full-on Hulk fake fighting from like the Avengers Endgame. So now they kind of like have a love-hate relationship between the beholder that's a pacifist. So, and then from those fake farmer pirates, they stole their pig mascot. So now they're fattening him up.
Nice. That was when we started Skull and Shackles. If any of you have played it before, you wake up press ganged onto this boat and they steal all your stuff, and I was mad that they took all of our stuff. I spent a long time trying to figure out what gear I wanted and how much could I carry and all of that, and then he's like, okay, and all your stuff is gone. And then eventually I meet the quartermaster, and the quartermaster says, well, you can buy your stuff back for market price. Now I had only spent half my gold, so I could have, but I was like, but it's my stuff. I'm not buying my own stuff back. And so I led the charge for a mutiny, and we mutinied, and I became the new captain, and I got all my stuff back. And now, I mean, we're 4 years and 4 books into that campaign, and I still tell that story all the time because I was so mad. I was like, it's mine. I want my stuff.
Why did they ever send us when they know like we're on the cusp of overthrowing them? You guys go get the water. Like, sure. And then they're like, oh, you're mutinying against us, so whatever, we're not going to let you on the boat. We're like, sure, we're going to destroy the water. So good for you.
Yeah. The design of that module, that book in the adventure path is to drive you nuts. To drive the players nuts and angry, make them angry and wanting to do exactly what you guys did. You have to mutiny at some point in time. I think if you guys sat there and said, oh, well, this is the life of a pirate and da-da-da-da, it would not have been a very exciting book. As it was, that first part of the book is painful for everybody, including the GM.
Rum drinking thing.
I was not pleased with having to do that to you guys because I feel like there's a lot of trust that the GM and the players have to have with each other, that you know that I'm going to let the dice kill you, not try to kill you myself. And that first part of the book really, that first part of the first book really just really wants you to make it, make life miserable.
When I played that, I definitely went in the penalty box.
Yeah, we had to put Vinny in the box. He survived.
Yes.
Oh no, then I was still
that,
sassy when I got out of the box. And was still standing
I
after the
remember
lashes.
they were
The
like
thing that was
whipping
great
this-
about that was Vinny's character was not, opposed to human trafficking. Well, not human trafficking, but what
creature trafficking.
trafficking. And it was great because they're like, what do you care? It's like, you're enslaving these people. That's not okay.
And I remember Vinny looking at the table and going, I know this is a bad idea. I know that I'm probably going to get killed, but I can't let it go. I'm a lawful good character. I can't let this go. And we're like, all right, go for it. And so he got put in the punishment box on the boat. But he did it. So speaking of, alignments, what kind of characters, whether you want to talk alignment or class or ancestry, what do you like to play? What's your favorite to play and why?
Well, in all reality, I like to switch it up, but I seem to almost always be an elf or a half elf. I don't know exactly why that is. I had a long stretch of time when I always was the cleric, because the very first time I played D&D, I don't even remember how this came up, but it was like, oh, you never played this before. Well, we're gonna need a healer, so.
Which is not an easy class to play.
Anyway,
first time out of the box.
So then I had a long string of playing clerics, which I like that, but like this character I'm playing in Pathfinder right now was started as a rogue and now she's a bard, and I've backed into being a bard a few times now, which I like. I don't know why I don't pick it from the get-go. I don't know why that is, but it's kind of fun when it's like, oh, someone might know something about history. It's like,
yeah,
I do.
Always look at Trish.
Someone might know something about geography. Yeah, I do. So that stuff is fun.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I like doing things like that, because you can dabble.
Yeah. How about Jasmine? What do you like to play?
I usually tend to play either gnomes, elves, or half drow, and usually I only play a bird because I really like birds and I can get away with the theater references. and it helps that I have two other people in my group that get the musical references too.
Nice.
And then if I'm not playing a bird, I usually play a cleric of some manner. So.
Nice.
And usually I'm chaotic good. I don't think I play any other alignment well.
I understand that. Yeah. Eric, Jason?
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. I just try up different things. I mean, I guess probably more than any other character ancestry, I play humans, because that extra skill point and that extra feat are just. I mean, dark vision's cool and all, but I like my characters to be able to do things, and I don't always play smarties with high skill point classes. So that extra skill point is just tempting.
Yeah.
But like when I say that, I mean like out of 40 or more characters, 8 of them are human. So when I say I tend to play humans more, it's not like, oh, 80% of my characters are human. No, it's like 20% of my characters are human.
If any of you don't
and
know,
everybody
Jason
else
and I are
is
math
like
teachers.
this grudging 5% because like I don't frequently use the same non-human background twice. It's just
right.
Part of that comes from Pathfinder Society, where like I'll get a boon to play a special race, and I'm like, oh, cool. Now I should come up with a concept to play that race. Like, what character is that going to be? How am I going to work that out? Like, I think, yeah, don't think I have anything else. I tend to play good guy characters. Not necessarily like, you know, super like Dudley Do Right, I'll save you now, like kind of stuff, but I tend to play good line characters.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think I'd like to mix it up a lot too, because there's always, I'll come up with a concept. I mean, I have my elven investigator, who's a
drow.
No.
Oh.
You can't play drow for Pathfinder Society. This is for Pathfinder. He's an empiricist, so he's very much Sherlock Holmes. But you know. But I tend towards. I don't think I tend towards any given race. I think the first time I've ever created a human character was for my gunslinger, who's a Chalaxian named Slotto Crepitonius. And I tend towards characters that, when I'm playing characters for the society or even just in regular, I try to pretend. I try to create characters that are good. I think it's difficult for me to think in evil terms. I will occasionally create a chaotic neutral character because, you know, chaotic neutral is also easy to play because when you're chaotic neutral, it's all about you.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think every human can do that every once in a while, no problem. Like a real person, human, not a human race / ancestry from Pathfinder.
Yes.
But yeah, I think I tend towards more neutral good, chaotic good.
Yeah.
I like spellcasters over
Fighters.
Yeah, the melee fighters, but Bard tends to be a nice one because you still get to know how to do stuff and think about stuff and know stuff and recite a poem and make everybody excited about getting in and killed. So.
Yeah. People who know me know that I typically play a ranger. If I can't play a ranger, I play a rogue. And I will often play an elf or a half elf. It's my go-to all the time. I remember texting a friend of ours who plays in our normal games, and when we were out at Gen Con, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm playing in a Pathfinder Society game," and he goes, "Are you a ranger or a rogue?" And I was like, "A ranger." And he knew. Everybody who knows me knows that's my go-to. I'm starting to branch out a little bit, but it's that same thing that we were talking about earlier, is that I don't like change. So I know how to play a ranger, I know how to play a rogue, and they tend to be all the same. They get the same feats, they get the same weapons, because I know what to do with them. So it's, you know, subtle variations, but I'm starting to branch out a little bit as I get more comfortable. So we're gonna start wrapping it up pretty soon. I do want to talk about, it looks like we might have Ed in the waiting room, so we can get Ed in here and get his take. While we do that, Jason, can you just tell everybody a little bit about Pathfinder Society? If you know, hopefully people who are watching this probably know something about Pathfinder, but maybe they don't. So let's pretend they don't, and tell us what Pathfinder Society is.
Sure. Pathfinder Society is what's referred to as a living campaign. These really started out of things that were intended for convention play. Like way back, like before I even knew what a convention was. Now it's basically, think of it like episodes in a TV show. A lot of the different campaigns have sort of like a season-long arc. You don't have to be in every episode to enjoy it. And the reason they're called living campaigns is that in the ones that do it well, what the players do affect the future course of the campaign. The fact that we now have, you know, technology to handle all the result reporting means that a whole lot more information can be collected about what direction the campaign should go, instead of having to just like, well, I'll write a letter to the people who are handling this and tell them what happened at my tables. So what's good about it? What's good about it is it's great if you don't have a regular group to get together with. If you're looking for a group to play with, if you're not very experienced, your mileage is going to vary. Different communities are different, and that'll be the nice way I'll put that. But most of the better ones are happy to have new players and guide them and give them advice on how to enjoy themselves and how to play the game and all that other stuff. And there's a ton of people that I've met through playing organized play campaigns and living campaigns that I wouldn't have met otherwise. And I mean, including some that are like convention buddies. Like I only see them at conventions, but like, we chat like old friends every time we meet up.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of gripers. The internet is full of them. So let me like manage your expectations, right? Out there, people were like, oh, I want to go play an organized play campaign and I'm going to be able to do whatever I want because tabletop RPGs are, okay. Organized play campaigns, all of them have campaign guidelines, right? You need to have like just the way your home group would say, so this is the kind of game I'm thinking of running. Here's how I'd like you to follow character creation and all of that. Every organized play campaign has them. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. Sometimes certain options aren't a good idea for like the flavor of the campaign. Sometimes it's a matter of, well, let's just give everybody a level playing field with character creation, and we won't use randomization as part of character creation. We will just we'll do a point by system for stats, and everybody starts with this much gold, and here's how you determine your hit points without having to roll for it based off of your class. So those are some things that are going to happen. Are you going to be able to like go off in whatever random direction you want and do whatever you want every table? Like, no. You're ostensibly sitting down to at least semi go along with the plot. That you're probably still going to knock it clean off the rails if you're doing things right. But there's a certain conceit that like when you sat down, you knew there would be a story and you would find a way to get your character to go along with it, even if they're going along with it kicking and screaming, because it seems like a really bad idea and they're happy to tell everybody else at the table that we really should not be doing this. And some of the better scenarios actually account for that.
Yeah.
You have to have a naysayer at every table, don't you? I mean,
there has to be
not like almost required.
Yeah. I could go on forever. I don't want to. I just, every time I hear people that like to look down on organized play campaigns, I'm like, how many of you actually played in for like more than 2 sessions? Like, well, why would I want to sit down with a bunch of random people I don't know? I'm like, well, because maybe if you show up more than twice, you'll become part of a community and then you'll know a whole lot of people that you actually enjoy playing with. Things like that. Oh, I can't do the character I want, and so that means that this campaign is too restrictive. I'm sorry you can't make your drow noble vivisectionist alchemists because that's not appropriate to the campaign. You're telling me you literally couldn't come up. Like, I've had people who play a lot of Pathfinder, both in society games and outside of society games, and they're like, they come up to those comments, they're like, really, bro? Society campaigns are literally one of the least restrictive campaigns as far as options go. And half the time towards the end of Pathfinder First Edition, half the time when they were restricting options is because they wanted to like release them as like a special benefit you got through playing.
Right.
They're like, oh, there's a cool thing you're going to be able to get. You're going to be able to get the cool thing later because it's part of the story that you're going to play through. Yeah, but anyway, it's really great for drop in and drop out. You don't have to play all the scenarios. You don't have to play them in any particular order. I have like this huge stable of characters because honestly, there's really no way you're going to play through all the storylines with one character anyway.
Yeah.
My largest organized play run was through the Living Greyhawk campaign, and that was an aspect I really liked. Was you could participate in storylines, you could play most anything. You were generally working toward a common good goal, and I could go anywhere and play it, whether it was out of state, out of country, as long as I could find enough people and somebody to run it. I had offers to host me over in England at one time
Really?
to have me play or run Living Greyhawk.
And I completely missed out on Living Greyhawk. Like, I didn't even know organized play living campaigns were a thing at that point. I actually found out about that while I was doing research about Greyhawk, because I was back converting a 3rd edition Paizo adventure path from Dungeon Magazine into 2nd edition. It's a long story, don't ask. But it had a lot of interesting aspects that I wish we could revive in some of the living campaigns that are running currently. Like, you would have regional scenarios, so they'd encourage people to travel to different regions.
That was
I
a
don't
very
know if I
cool
missed
aspect.
the time units concept, where like your character could only have so much activity in a given amount of time, and it literally took your, because in living Greyhawk, like literal regions of the world were literal regions in the game.
Yep.
So where you lived or where you were playing, that's where you're eventually, and that's a pretty cool concept, even though I'm sure it had a lot of hurdles to it. And there's times
Pros
I wish we
and
could get some of
cons.
those aspects back that were kind of neat.
Yep. So, Ed, who's Mepacon's founder, for anybody who doesn't know who he is, what is give us one Pathfinder related story, to round us off for this stream.
Probably putting together that event that I mostly tried to run at your place way back, entirely too long ago. And it was probably biting off a lot more than I could chew, as far as the number of players and how far reaching the players were as far as geography, especially since we didn't have this technology available to have it go anywhere.
Yeah, we brought the whole staff to our house, and we called it ZanyCon and had a whole day long Pathfinder event. We actually hired babysitters to watch all the kids. Like, it was a good time, but yeah, that was a crazy day.
The beauty of that type of event was getting to be with everybody, and the food and the drink and just hanging out.
We had a great time. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here and for talking Pathfinder with us. If any of you watching have not tried Pathfinder, totally recommend it. We have a couple of events today. We'll have lots more in November when we have our next full convention. And so hopefully you will check it out. And we'll be back in about 5 minutes with our next stream, which is talking with my Black friend. We're going to talk with Gavin Pinchback about race and gaming. So check us out in just a few minutes.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to shut this down so I can